Board, are you ready? Good evening and welcome to our regularly scheduled town board meeting. It is October 25th, 2022. It is 7:01 p.m. And may I ask for a roll call, please?
You may. Mr. Boggs.
Present.
Ms. Bouchard.
Present.
Ms. Olson.
Here.
Ms. Marino. Present. Mr. Goldman.
Here.
Thank you very much. We have agenda presented. Are there any alterations or changes to the agenda as presented?
I just wanted to raise one thing. So I sent it again pretty late. I don't know if anyone saw that email about the.
The Bond Act?
Yeah, I don't know if we want to talk about that at all, the resolution that. If we wanted to talk about a resolution in support of the. Clean water, clean air, green jobs, environmental bond act. It's fine if not, it came up late, but. It would need to be tonight if we did it, because obviously the election is November 8th, so.
So it would
Just
be,
raising it, if we want to talk about it, it would just be in
okay,
addition to discuss.
so that would be item C under new business. Is everyone okay with adding that?
Sure. I am.
Okay. Anything else? We can eliminate upcoming events on October 26th and just cross that one out. Ooh, special meeting.
Oh.
Happy to do that one.
Cross out, it's always good.
What? Yeah, but we don't have to do that. You can just, we're approving the agenda, then we can change the order. You don't actually have to write the location. Yep. Anything else? If not, I would accept a motion to approve the agenda as amended with the item addition item C under new business.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Privilege of the floor. Is there anybody in the public who wishes to address us? Not sure if it's for community rec, unless you'd like to independently address us, you are welcome to do that as well. But is there anyone in the public who wishes to address us on any matter before the town or not before the town, for that matter? If not, we have another privilege of the floor at the end of the meeting. Not seeing anybody jumping up and down or waving online, so I'm gonna assume that nobody wants to do that. I would request that so that we can release Michelle into the wild of Trumansburg to celebrate budgeting. If we could move budget modifications to the top, and do we have Michelle, do we have a new resolution, or are we waiting on that revised resolution?
Yeah. Along with what you just said.
Okay, great. In case anybody had any questions on budget modifications, since Michelle was here, I was hoping we could move that one forward. There's a printout of budget modifications. It was emails in the board packet. If there were any questions, I thought we could just knock them out right now. Does anybody have any questions?
I didn't.
Richard, Mary, Michael, did you guys have any questions on budget modifications?
Nope.
Okay, well, then, yep, they are pretty clear, but it's always, sometimes when they're not, I can't answer the question as easily as Michelle can, since she was here, so I would accept a motion to approve the budget modifications as presented. Is there a motion on that?
Motion to approve as
Mhm.
presented.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Budget modifications are done. Michelle, no one had any questions?
Okay, great. I'm gonna just distribute this updated resolution and what you just sent me, right?
Yes.
I sent this to you over email.
Got it. Thank you. We also send you the budget modification.
Yes.
They are in the packet already. But you want a hard copy or do you?
No.
Okay.
So don't you also have to modify the. Yes.
Oh, yes, that's what. That's the. I didn't write it down.
Oh, increase, oh, yeah, okay. You have to write the total, okay, got it.
You're okay to go ahead with TCR and then come back to us in case there's any further things you want to.
Yeah.
Okay, then we can move on to, we are pleased to be joined tonight by representatives of Trumansburg Community Rec. So I would love to invite you up if you want to talk from there, or if you want to come up here. I think this is on. So I think you would actually be in the viewing area.
Stars. We're about to continue.
I like it.
So thank you all for all the work you do on the board. I wanted to, we wanted to address the board tonight to do sort of two things. One is to reintroduce you into TCR to Trumansburg Community Rec and give you a sense of what we're doing, what we're working on, and where our mission is. And secondly, to talk about zoning clarifications that we're hoping, obviously, we don't need to resolve them tonight, but we wanted to bring them to your attention because we feel like that may be not a limiting factor, but a hurdle that we'll have to jump over as we move forward to try to find secure spaces for what we're trying to do. So I'll take a second to tell you a little bit about Trumansburg Community Rec. I think you've got the handout, yes. Oh, sorry. So I'm Todd Edmonds, president of TCR. John Wordis.
The younger.
The little one, Cheryl and Heather Mount, who are all serving on our board.
And we're in listed in the packet.
Yes, all the board members are on this. I think you guys already have these, right? Did you get these? So you're good to go. So TCR, Trumansburg Community Rec was launched in 2016 by volunteers, parents, and community members of the town of Ulysses, because we found a need for more recreational facilities in town. There's lots of programming, there's lots of youth sports and recreational sports and adult activities and even senior citizen activities, but not enough facilities to actually execute all of the programming that exists. Our kids, when we formed the group, we all had kids in school and all the kids played sports and recreational events, and there just wasn't enough capacity. School's doing a great job maintaining fields, trying to serve the entire community, but there's just really not enough recreational spaces for baseball, football, soccer, lacrosse, everything else that's going on in the community. So that said, we formed the 501(c)(3), started to try to raise money to generate some income for us to create sports fields, other recreational facilities, a pool at the school, which was a big wish list item for many years, for decades really, and also a community center, as well as a skate park. So in this handout, there's a little overview of the things that we're working on currently. The outdoor rec campus is something that we went to the community and we did some research and did some polls and community gatherings to find out what the community wanted. And this idea of a recreational campus was something that came to light that would include sports fields, walking paths, pavilions, playgrounds, that sort of thing that would help us to enjoy outdoor spaces with family and friends. The skate park would be a part of that rec campus. Obviously, in order to do that, we need property and space. So that's one of the other reasons we're here tonight to talk about zoning. The indoor swimming pool, we worked with the town to create a fund that could be contributed to by the community and the school, so that we could start to save money for that, because it's a very big ticket item. Obviously, the school will be need to go back and get more money as well to add to that pile, but eventually, hopefully, we can raise some money to build a pool. It would most likely be at the school, so that would be where it would actually exist. Community center is something that we've talked about for a while. It can mean a lot of different things to different people, but it would be a space to gather for all ages of the community. We don't currently have something like that in town, and it would be great to see something that would help to bring people together. We don't have a place for that yet, or much of a vision yet, but we know that it's something that people want. The other two things that we're currently involved in, part of our sort of efforts, are promoting social and recreational activities in town. We do a monthly newsletter with all of our events that we find in the area to help sort of spread the recreational news to the community. We also promote that through social media. And then just a few weeks ago, we had our first Sunday Fun Day recreational day, which was really an opportunity to sort of bring all of the local community sports and recreational groups together in one day and invite the community to come out and just participate and sort of see what's available. So we had soccer, football, robotics club, golf courses, golf activities were planned. We had obstacle courses, ping pong, foosball. We had a whole bunch of stuff and free ice cream, which was awesome. And we had about 80 people come out for that. So that was a nice turnout for our first event. And we're hoping to do that in the spring and the fall each year for the next few years to try to, again, build awareness of who we are, but also build awareness that all these activities exist in our community. Yeah, so that's a little bit of an overview. Any questions on that before I jump
I
into
have
the,
one question.
Yeah.
So we have a football field. Why do you need more football? fields?
we have a football team, but we also have 2 youth football programs that each have between 75 and 100 kids.
Right,
So one football field
yeah,
is not enough. And soccer club has over 200 kids. They're
Right.
spaced out between rec soccer, competitive
Right.
soccer, baseball. We're all in the same boat. so.
We did have fun last spring though, when we were trying to duck being in the outfield of both the varsity team or when youth baseball was also playing, we were also in the middle school field surrounded in the out. I mean, we truly did have children ducking when we have a power hitter come to bat.
It's a little
So,
scary out there.
yeah,
Yeah, I was out behind the school on a random Tuesday evening, not long ago. Soccer fields completely filled, baseball fields filled with football players,
Mhm.
school on the track, school on the soccer fields. So there was a tremendous amount of traffic out there. And this, like I said, the school is doing a great job.
Yeah.
But it's overwhelming and I think we need more space. So anyway.
You saw Barangas is for sale?
I did, yeah. So we talked a little bit about that in our last 4 boards meeting. I think there's 18 acres there, could be
Yes.
wrong.
it's 18.
It's probably enough for a field maybe and some other activities. And they also have obviously a facility there. So there's opportunities there. We haven't looked at it closely yet, but yeah.
Yeah, you're talking zoning, because that's a development district that will go away when it's, like, as soon as it's sold.
Oh, I see.
Well, yeah, yes and no, it doesn't, that's actually discovering that's a little bit more complicated than that, so. I mean, it will exist, it depends on if it changes use, and so the new property owner could keep it in the same use. So,
Be a nice segue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna segue to John and Cheryl, who are zoning experts. And they'll talk a little.
I
bit.
have one
Yes.
question too, just though, so there's also, I don't know if you've talked to or looked at all the Jacksonville Park. I mean, that's not big enough to solve
Yeah.
all the problems, but I don't know if you're thinking about just one campus, but if that couldn't work, if spread out things like this might be an option, because that's, you know, something that, I mean, obviously you'd have to talk to their board,
Sure.
but that might be, I mean, it's a community park that the town recognizes
Yeah.
and puts some funds into, so.
We have entertained it, we have entertained it and we haven't approached them yet because it is small. So we have.
yeah,
Right,
It's pretty small, but you know, your point about dividing it up to multiple
Right.
facilities is certainly
Right.
valid. It's a cost of development, you know, you're developing multiple spaces versus one space. And your
Right.
Cost goes up, but it's certainly possible. Yeah, we've sort of looked at other communities and what they're doing, and some have complete campuses and some have soccer
Right.
fields all over the place, so.
How much money have you raised so far?
We've got about 45,000 so far, so not nearly enough to do a fraction of what we want to do, but in order for us to get more funding, the zoning issue is something that we need to clarify so that when we do get money from funders, are gonna say, do you own the property? You know, is it zoned properly? There's a couple of big questions and we don't have those answers there first up.
And we are researching grants, so that we're actively looking for the funding that will add to what we already have.
All right then. Zoning conversation.
So Todd did a nice job of showing that we're sort of acting as an umbrella for the community in terms of recreational, infrastructural and programming needs. And just sort of, we've created a large wish list and an expensive wish list of infrastructure. We've been in existence for 6 years now, I think, as an organization. And I've been sort of one of the point people to go out to comb the want ads and newspaper to see what's for sale out there. And we have looked over the years now at a huge number of properties. And it's sort of the cart before the horse or what have you. We keep bumping into this, a number of conundrums, but one of them is that even within our own board, when we find a property that we find is actually potentially affordable, within our own board, we get a lot of hesitation because, in particular, because of the zoning. And so what do I mean by that? I think I'm not an expert, even though I think he said that we're experts, but I've read our zoning multiple times, and what I can see from it, and what's sort of shocking to me and to us, I think, is that recreational facilities, which I think are really a fundamental community assets, are really not even listed in there in terms of the types of facilities that we're looking to develop. And again, that includes playing fields, includes a state park, it includes potentially a swimming pool, and then community center. A community center is, by our definition within the town, a place, structure, or other facility used for fraternal, social, educational, and recreational programs, generally open to the public and intended to serve significant segments of the community. The question is, do playing fields fit under that definition? And as sort of a point person out there in the field, looking at within all of the different zones that we have, the two zones that I think are most promising to us are the residential and the agricultural rural zones in terms of what's available and the acreage that we need. And community center isn't even listed in the agricultural, even under of your 4 categories of allowed uses, it's not even listed under special permit. So it basically doesn't allow us to consider agricultural property at this point, our current zoning. The other closest category, I think, of classification would be park, regional, or community. And our definition for a regional park is a parcel of land in public or private ownership available to the public for daytime, evening, and overnight recreational, educational, cultural, or scenic purposes, such as a county, regional, or state park. And I think the problem with that is that we're not quite a community center and we're not quite a park based on these definitions. And so we're hoping for some clarification to that, and that would be helpful, I think, as we pointed out, in not only convincing the community to contribute time, energy, money, but even within our own board, we've said no to what I think were some promising, was at least one promising site. So I think are you ready to roll?
I just had a question
Yes.
for our board and our collective memory. Was this taken out when we did the rezoning, or was it just missed?
So it was missed because I talked to Liz Thomas about it, because in the agricultural zone, you're allowed to have a health club and you're also allowed to have a golf course.
Yeah, man, I could read what's actually within the agricultural
And
district.
I just wanted the history.
So when I talked to Liz Thomas, and I talked to her I talked to her maybe, I don't know, February, March time period, after TCR first reached out to me. And she was caught off guard because she's like, oh yeah, we weren't trying to exclude
Right.
recreation fields. It just wasn't explicitly put in. I mean, and her point was, well, we have golf courses. So, I mean, that was suggesting a philosophy, but recreational fields were not spelled out directly. The other thing I can tell you, just to piggyback on there, is research that I did working with both our attorney and our interim planner at the time, was that regional parks are not an ideal category to go underneath for this type of activity, because the state has some very specific interpretations of what parks are. And once you move something into parkland, it's almost, it has their specifications there, and it's more of a permanent change to the land use. So that's probably not ideal from their standpoint either. So I hope I didn't take anything away from your presentation when I did that.
That's great. Yeah, I think that was what catches my eye is that, again, if we think of some of the types of infrastructure that we're proposing as essential or fundamental resources for a community, which I think most of us would agree to that. And then we look at what, if you have a minute, spare minute to look at what's approved, say in the agricultural district, in terms of either at the level of site plan approval or even at the more rigorous special permit. Many of these are not necessarily community oriented, so and certainly many of them are not agricultural as well. And so to me, I think, you know, we're making a plug for recreational facilities which offer a safe, healthy recreational outlet for community members, and get us off of our cell phones and away from our television screens and that sort of thing. So we won't put a big plug into it, but I think that it certainly merits at least the level of what we see of some of these other things here. So we have some potential ideas about maybe how we could fix this, and I think Cheryl wants to maybe take a moment to.
John, can you just say what kind of acreage are you looking at as
So-
needed?
So
What parcels that you might buy?
your point was great. We'd love to see everything on one campus.
Yeah.
And we're looking not only in the town, but certainly we're looking within the village. And so, you know, we've got kind of our eyes on some of the INHS, the mobile home access, additional lands. You know, I'd have to have a beer in my hand to talk with you about all of the different properties that we looked at. Some of them large, some of them small. And beggars can't be choosers. That's really what it comes down to. So if something like Nose Paws were to come up for sale again, why that might be a nice community center, at least some form of community center. Because a community center means a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
Right.
It could be a sports complex. That's a community center in some communities. It could be just a room in a house, which is a community center in another community. And so that's kind of hard to work with. But
But so
we
in
know
your
that we need
ideal,
each
if
of
you
those.
had one campus,
With one campus,
what's the acreage?
28
you're
acres
looking at?
would be
28?
23
So
acres.
the parcel on 96.
Which one? Yeah, so the one that's basically, it used to be Brown, where Brownies Park is. So that one, that was the most lucrative or the most reasonable for us.
Right.
Of all of the different expensive projects that we're looking at, we as a board decided, hey, let's at least shoot for, let's go for the low hanging fruit first. Something that would be least expensive to develop, but have a big wow factor and a big use factor, and turned out playing fields, I think. You know, football, soccer, baseball, that sort of thing, made the most sense. Swimming pool is a big dollar project. But playing fields could, especially if it was at that location, gives our group visibility, gives recreation visibility, it's on the bus route, et cetera, lots of good things. But it's-
30 acres.
I can,
13.
it's only 13 acres, and we've actually have an engineer who's helped us try to squeeze various field things into that.
Yeah.
And it certainly doesn't tackle what through various surveys and what have you that we've done, it doesn't tackle the entire NOx, but it would be useful. I mean, it would be, I think, a nice property, but it's not, our board isn't going to move forward with that. Because it,
had the extra field extra that I was gonna.
and
add.
it has also, right, we talked with the folks who own the adjacent field, and they were open to discussions anyway, so that we could double that size. So there's potentially room for expansion in that respect.
So
So
what are they
so
asking for that?
120, yeah, 130. So it's, you know, it's within our grasp financially as a starter campus. That said, if we can find a campus that's 30 acres, then that's gonna potentially
Right.
be able to take. So we don't have, at this point in time, Trumansburg Community Recreation does not have, you know, a horse in the race. It doesn't have any property at this point. And I think you guys could help us, either yourselves or push whoever it is, either, you know, in the planning board to raise this as a priority. I think I went to in April, I went to a planning board meeting. Caitlin had passed along a request for them to explore this, and it really basically got shelved because there were other important things to discuss. And so I think today, if you guys are amenable to we're trying to do is a super high priority for us, and we're hoping that you can help us figure out how to make it a higher priority for whoever the decision makers are gonna be.
Well, it's our call.
But let's let Cheryl discuss what we come up with as possible solutions to this, and then,
We'll get into the weeds a little bit, but just
Yeah.
some ideas for how we can reframe the zoning language.
So it is your call?
So the town board, yes, we get to vote whether or not we change zoning. So it's
oh,
the board.
fantastic, so we're talking to the right people tonight.
Well, I mean, we are in the whole process of re-looking at the comprehensive plan that's really, I'm not saying this should not happen until that, I'm just saying it's a, you know, we have to look at the big picture and the detailed picture, so it's really interesting to hear what you guys have. come up with.
So this is a little bit detailed, just the language that we came up with that could be used in the zoning if you were to change it. One way to do it would be to, which is called Plan 1 here. One way would be to add recreational facilities into your current definition of community center. And then define, in the definitions section of the zoning, define recreational facilities as facilities including one or more of the following: athletic fields, lighted or non-lighted, clubhouses, skate parks, hiking, biking trails, hard sport playing surfaces, parking lots, and pool. So that really gets everything we're looking at. Plus whatever, I mean, if there's anything else that you can think of as recreational facilities, sure, add it, but that's just what we came up with, as things that we've been looking at. And then, the final thing to do there would be to add community center to the list of uses allowed by site plan review in the AR district, because community center is currently on that list, either under site plan review, allowed by site plan review or by,
It is site plan review
Well,
for
there-
residential.
yeah, or some,
And
in
something
some
else.
places by special permit, but in the AR district, it's not in there at all.
Did you just say community centers aren't in the AR at all?
Mhm. So that's our suggestion, is just to add it to that. Another way to do it would be to define recreational facilities in the definition section of zoning, same way as in Plan 1. And then add recreational facilities to all of these zones that we would like to see them in and think in general they should be in, which is ARR, HCHN, WH. BZ is not a zone, I meant B1. And then possibly the multiple residential and the motor home. Possibly, those are very small in our current zoning, so I don't know if you really need it there, but that would be up to you guys. That's it. Yeah, those are the two different ways we
When
thought.
you
it
talk
would work.
about hard court surfaces, what are you talking about?
So like an outdoor basketball court, which could be pickleball, could be, foosball, or not foosball, but futsal, like outdoor, indoor soccer sort of thing.
Pavements.
It would be a pavement, basically, like the basketball court, multi-use.
Tennis?
Tennis. Although we have
We
tennis
have
courts,
tennis.
but there could be a variety of.
I
Pickleball.
play tennis and.
You said
I've never
pickleball,
had trouble getting a court.
Well, yeah, you should. I
Right.
mean, Generally pretty available.
How about shuffleboard?
That's the
Basketball.
that's a question for.
Florida.
Adrian. For the agents,
That's Florida.
That's upstate New York. We could start our own bocce court.
So you're thinking of outdoor fields though, right? Like the building is you're not thinking of something the scale of, say, the rink in Lansing or something
At this
like
point,
that,
it's not on
and the
our radar.
fields in Lansing.
But, I mean, we've had, many people have asked about it.
Right, well, I know it's I mean, I used to drive my kid there for soccer all the time, but, yeah, but that's a whole different scale that, really needs some consideration of where you put it. If it's in throughout the whole AR, which is the biggest zone in the town, I mean,
No, we're not looking at indoor right now.
right, okay, so like a clubhouse would be just like, you'd have restrooms and a meeting type area and stuff like, you're thinking of a
Yeah,
reasonable
like-
scale building, not gigantic.
So-
Community center has to be enclosed.
So it's
Yeah.
difficult though, because you already allow a community center.
Right.
project. And if somebody brings a community center to you and says, we're gonna put an indoor basketball court and this is in a residential zone, indoor basketball court. You haven't defined it. That's part of the problem. You really haven't defined what a community center is, and it's hard, admittedly, because you go to any different community and their community center is gonna be different than the next community. And there's maybe a nuance, semantics, but maybe there's a nuance between a recreational center, community center, and a community center, but I haven't seen it. So I in my experience, oftentimes like people will call, if there's a room where people have multiple uses and it's for all ages, like say the Lansing, the rink, that whole facility, that's a community center. Even it's in
So
some,
it's a recreation.
it's a recreational center. So
Serving the community.
again, it comes down to the text, I think, more than anything, what you feel comfortable with, what you think the community would be comfortable with. But to be honest, I think we're open, I think if we can get something in at the level, each of those different levels, from permitted use down to permitted accessory uses to uses allowed by site plan approval to uses only allowed by special permit. Each of those becomes, increased oversight and smaller hoops or harder hoops to jump through. We would, I think, like to see something in the site plan approval zone or range. And so whatever you're comfortable with for that, great. That said, if we don't have, if we have a billionaire benefactor come to our community and says, I can't believe you don't have an indoor facility here, aside from what the school can provide. Would we say no? And if we, to that sort of thing, then our zone, I wouldn't. And so where in our zoning could we put that, I guess? Maybe that's what I'm trying to get at, that's missing. There's no
So
place.
maybe that's a question. So that the 13 acres on the United Systems in which zone,
It's an agricultural,
right? And that seems like a perfect place for something.
right? But right now, I mean, they're not, Len, please interrupt me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is the cheap part is buying. And so, I mean, it's not cheap,
It's not cheap.
but it's
Lowest.
but the lowest price, then you have to develop it, the developing is, but they're not gonna purchase the property. We ran into this problem when we had somebody come to us, remember the candle factory guy? Who they very much wanted to build, a factory, a plant on that property. Zoning doesn't allow, the fact that 85% of town land outside the village is an agricultural zone, and they need a minimum of 13 acres, right? Like, there's no point below that.
Right.
The only place is gonna be in the township. And it's mostly ag land. So right now, they're just stuck between a rock and a hard place.
And you
But how-
can't apply for grant funding if you don't know the zoning is there.
Right.
You gotta have those things.
So it doesn't seem that hard to modify the zoning before we, I mean, if we wait for the comprehensive plans.
We're talking years
Two
before we
years.
go to zoning
So I
updates.
don't think we want to do that. I think we want to fix it.
I would agree. So my recommendation would be putting them and sitting down with Niels to look through this. And to talk to our attorney to look at it also. And the question for the board would be, well, first off, does the rest of the board feel that way? Do we want to amend an entire zone? Do we want to look at a development district? I mean, there are different safety releases. Development district would be site specific.
Right.
But they don't want to buy something unless we're willing
Doesn't
to
seem like a
change.
development district could work, though.
Depends on the
Especially-
scale.
Especially if it's. if-
No, but you're
so we
saying
put it
you
all in
can't
one
buy
case.
property if you don't know you can do it, and then development district is an approval of a specific
Right.
site.
So I think we have to-
So- But, yeah, I mean, I think that I would favor really looking at some intermediate thing that would allow you to do something without allowing just some blanket giant thing anywhere in the 85% of the town, because without doing the comprehensive plan and re-looking at things, because I just don't know that that's a fair thing to the rest of
Well,
town's property. I mean, I think what you want to do is hugely important and extremely valuable, and I'm 100% for it. I'm just saying that there's other, I think we have to consider carefully. And so I'm trying to understand what you really feel like you need. You need, until we get to a place where you know, perhaps it gets further amended, or you get $1 million donor and then you can say, hey, we got this money, we've got this spot. That could potentially become a development district. But, yeah, so just to understand what you need at the, like you need recreational fields, you need there to be able to be some level of parking that would be
Yeah.
part of the zoning would have to have design standards for dealing with parking for a recreational field and all, lighting and all that. And some sort of a building size, although the AR zone allows pretty large buildings right now,
You need
anyway,
Minimum
like
13,
20,000 square feet, I think.
minimum 13 and maximum.
30 would be,
13
30 would be
would be-
one campus, 13 would be, you know, you can pretty much do the math.
But obviously, ideally, we'd like to put
I mean, to be completely honest, you know, we've been having conversations with IHS and there's quite a bit of space there that, could be potentially they're interested in working with us, but they're quite a ways down the road from being able to really put their hands around that space and negotiate with us to figure out what they want to do with that green space, but that would be a perfect spot.
Are you talking about when you make a left into the
Yeah,
driveway that goes back to the apartments? that are
Yeah,
back there?
but that's in the village, so.
Right.
Yeah, that's the village's.
But that's a huge piece of land in
Yeah.
in the front.
Which would be great for
But the problem with INHS is that the longer they have the land, we already went through this with the grassroots folks, because we looked at across the.
Right, I was wondering.
The longer they have this property, the more ideas they have for using for themselves, in all honesty.
Right.
Why
So
is it
Yeah.
owned that land?
They bought all the adjacent acreage with that as well, and they came to us and talked to us, and it's been sort of a hot cold relationship. I think they probably more wanted good energy from local groups to help promote their causes. Actually, that's just my own personal.
I think they're very open to working with us, but it's gonna be, there's gonna be time involved for them to get their heads on the project.
And that would have to be allowed within the village's zoning.
Right.
Because it's not
That's
our,
not ours.
not nothing to do with
Right.
us.
That's the biggest space that we've seen that's practical.
Uh-huh.
The Perry City, or it's 96 is the second, and it's, you know, it's level.
It has a lot.
assets.
It has
So that-
water.
that is-
No, buses, yeah. It's just, it's not big enough, but that's okay, because it doesn't all have to be on the campus. And
Right.
if we're doing playing fields, which is probably the least amount of infrastructure that would need to be developed. Great,
I mean, I think water is an issue too, you know, a lot of the AR,
Mhm.
there's not municipal water, and so it really needs to be considered because of where it's gonna go, and if we need the water, I mean, there's a lot of complicated issues.
Sure.
Right.
So
but the-
just
yeah.
changing the zone. So,
Well, but the Perry City property, I
Right,
mean,
yep.
it has water.
Exactly.
May I recommend, Rich, it sounds like you're interested. Would you want to join a working committee with me? We can look,
Sure.
we can do the things I outlined and also review the actual, I've been through the 2009 comprehensive plan, their objectives. Their objectives also, well, if we do 3 of us, it has to be a public meeting.
It could be.
It could be, but at this point, I think probably it would be easier not to have all public meetings. But we can talk about that for just getting together to start hashing some details out. But going through the 2009 comprehensive plan, it was already recognized that there were issues, that there were facility related issues, that we wanted to promote recreation. So I think we have a good working basis as well already in the town. I don't want to wait till
Yeah, no.
2025
Yeah.
to
That would slow us down.
slightly, yes.
Sure. No, definitely. I'm not saying we should.
So,
Just saying
all right,
there's-
so why don't we look at that and talk to Niels? and
Yeah.
see- I mean, see, particularly maybe that property could be worked into some jurisdiction.
Well, it could be a develop, it could be considered as a development
it could
district.
also
if-
be sold tomorrow to somebody else.
right.
So our preference, I think, would be,
You could do a
Not-
contingent offer.
we realized that, and they will convince the whole board to take that approach.
Mhm.
And
Because this
I'll
is an
see.
easy thing for us to do.
so maybe you could explain to us what that would entail on your end briefly.
Well, Caitlin just outlined it and, and
So
Roxanne as
you-
well, because you have all those options to do.
So it's a rezoning process and there's
Yeah.
a legal process to go through rezoning. And I mean, we would have to have. It would be on the property owner's behalf also to be comfortable with the rezoning. So it would be, it'd be one of those things that would all, are you putting the chicken for the,
Right.
But
you know?
when we were dealing with a real estate agent and we put a contingency that we receive approval for the use that we want.
I would have to be development.
It would,
It would be-
the quickest way.
It would be a
Yeah.
development district.
Yeah.
We'd have to do public hearings. We'd have to have an agreed upon, definition. It would have to go to sketch plan at the town, at the planning board level.
Figure at least through 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that property's been sitting on the market for quite a while
Yeah.
and they've had numerous people kicking the can on it. We've gotten many calls about it. So I don't know, that property owner would be willing to do that.
need to change the zoning for that property to make it only for recreational facilities.
Well, we-
Well, that's what a
That's
development district is.
Yeah.
It's for a
Specific use.
It's a
Right.
specific
Yeah.
use according to a laid out plan that's approved by the planning.
So
board.
can we do that now?
Well, you'd have to have like a plan of what you want to do there. And
They do have a plan, I've seen it.
Nice.
no, I mean, for that particular piece.
They do, they do have a plan. So,
Well, so there, so that's
can do
like
that.
the fastest option to doing something, getting some visibility. It sounds like a lot of the other properties you're looking at are in the village. For your longer term goal.
Right.
So, I mean, that, maybe that, and there's water there, there's a lot of,
Sure.
it's flat. The parking, you can imagine working because it's a bit of a pull off from the
Yeah.
main road.
We already
Um,
decided.
Right, so it seems like, to me, like that has a lot of potential if you're interested in that.
The people across the road, the group, full towns that want
Yes.
to.
12 tribes.
Yeah. They are
It's another-
currently standing and selling the entire adjacent property to the space that we're looking at. It's only like half that block is for sale. The other half is owned by them. And we did have a conversation with them and they were interested in a conversation about selling it. So I think there's potential for us to get as much as 20 acres there, which would be great in
Yeah.
a zoning district. So does the zoning district apply to a particular parcel or is it an area?
It's
Yeah.
a parcel, it's out, there'd be a parcel map for it, so.
So if we decided to get this other property adjacent to it, we would have to rezone that as well
Not
down the road or?
you can, there's a process of adding.
Okay.
You can-
Well, I mean, it's a development district, so it is.
It's considered a rezoning, a legal rezoning
Okay.
of the property.
But it's easier to add on.
Well, I'm going through this right now with another property, so yes, I'm very familiar. So what we would need to do is, I mean. You can't trigger it all by yourself, though. You would have to have the property owner would need to be amenable to it, because we wouldn't obviously want to change the zoning if the current property owner was. So I mean, I would think you'd want to get that. But the first thing it would do is essentially from a procedural standpoint, is you'd file the paperwork with our town planner. And he has that paperwork, he's doing it, like I said, he's working with somebody else right now. That would come before the town board, the town board's amenable, it goes, we send it to the planning board for their feedback on it. And for a scoping plan.
Okay.
It doesn't have to go to the level of site plan approval, though.
Okay.
Because you can have a development district put in place without having a final site plan. But then you can't do any work until you have a final.
Right,
site
right,
plan.
that makes sense. I mean, for us, it's purchasing the property is step one, and maybe in order to do that, we need board approval and investment.
Right.
Great.
But in terms of speed, how long would it take
At least 2 to 3 months.
to change the zoning
2 to 3 months.
similar to one of the scenarios that we proposed today?
Well,
So you'd have to rush to get your scope. I mean, you'd have to get,
minimum.
you'd have to get on our board, like the next meeting you could get onto would be the November 8th meeting. That's if you could get the property owner to be on board with it and
Not
your
that
board.
fast, I'm talking about the two scenarios that we came to today.
Just
I mean, that would be our
changing
preference.
the whole AR.
Right.
Changing the zoning.
Right.
That's a less specified timeline. There's not
Yeah.
as formal of a process on that. I mean, you could, in some ways you could proceed, we could proceed concurrently. I think this one that's gonna impact 85% of the land is gonna result in a lot more public impact, like public discussion, feedback from different boards. I mean, the rezoning is a fairly specific timeline or specific process. This is much more nebulous and based on the preferences of how much information or the people around the table here want, so.
Can I ask another question about the scenario that we proposed today? The fact that we were thinking that would only like a, recreational facility would be, as approved, it could only be approved under site plan review.
Mhm.
Does that help everyone feel more secure that it wouldn't be something terrible? Like you would have that much control? Doesn't that give you a lot of control?
So are you thinking about it under a special permit? Because that's the higher, no?
I think it's site plan
Site plan
review.
review, so
Does that seem like that? That's
Are you talking
kind of
about all the zones?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I would be really uncomfortable with that, because having been through the last zoning update. Like in particular, knowing what you're after, why you would put it in the Hamlet neighborhood or Hamlet.
well, I think we wouldn't want that.
Yeah. But,
I think it would be residential and then agricultural.
Yeah, and- and then, why you would put one out in the south part of the town, it wouldn't make sense either, so it's like, I wouldn't want to put it in there, say in that farmland, but, you're looking for something specific and you have, some properties in mind. I personally would be more comfortable doing the development district.
Right.
With those, yeah.
Oh, that's high, and I think it'd be easier to palatable for the town.
And it'd be quicker too.
populace.
It'd be a lot faster. And I think and this was something that I was concerned about at the time, was that before the last zoning round was adopted, 85% of the land in a single zone really restricts, because, right, you might not want it out where you're talking about in the southwestern portion, but it's, to me, I'm looking at Perry City, I'm like, it's not being sold for farmland. Like, if it was being sold for farmland, it was sold for farmland,
Well,
right?
That's why we need the whole comprehensive plan,
Yeah.
move forward, but I also was. Because maybe things have changed since that land use map was there,
I mean, it
and,
has.
and the last zoning had to be based on the comprehensive plans, last land use map, it's how it needs to work. And so otherwise you can get a lot of legal challenge to it, so we need to go through that process, and I think, we're poised and ready to get going. It's too slow for you.
Yeah.
But I think the development district option, if you can find a way with the landowner, would be the thing that, we can have the hearing of the properties around. It's not 85% of the land in the
You also
whole town. That's a lot.
have the money to purchase
Yeah.
Yeah.
before we go into the zone. Because you're making it for a specific purpose.
It
If
is.
you do that, and you don't end up having the money to buy it.
But-
What happens?
Right, but I mean, we can get close. I mean, we can give a very good indication to them if we're no, and we're not gonna pass it if they don't. So I mean,
Right.
we can all move
Yeah.
inch forward
Right.
simultaneously.
Property.
We actually did. It was a fairly low ball and we didn't win it. They sold it and you know what happened with that one. So I mean, we
Been down the road.
we've looked at funding sources, so it's possible for us. But our board members, some of our board members are just nervous about those additional funding sources. It's just-
Because you don't wanna be stuck with land you can't use.
Yeah.
Right, of course.
That's been sitting on the market for a couple of years, like, yeah.
So this, I agree with you, it's gonna be a lot of like, let's move forward and as much as far as we can with each of these, all the balls in the air.
And I think it's a really good site for that.
I think anywhere in 96, quite honestly.
Yeah.
So if there's a
Yeah.
different site that pops up, or, the Angus property, or, I mean, that has a lot of not,
It's $500,000.
I didn't see how much it was advertised.
Oh, wow.
Like 15. Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
Well,
It does have one residence, like a rental trailer.
It's not worth
Not
it.
not Airbnb.
No, but, yeah.
$1 million a weekend.
Um,
Well, it's going for land, as I've heard, is up to 100,000 an acre in our industrial zone. Yeah.
But this is a good buy going in.
It's,
If we act on us.
It's a good buy, but I showed one image. It really only handles 2 fields.
Yeah.
That's it.
And we're looking at
Well, there's soccer, football, baseball. I mean, the cost to develop that space is about $1.5 million.
Yeah, this is just
do
the
the
ground
Just to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
so
and grading and parking lot. It's not cheap, and so if
this one here is.
if one campus, that brings down the cost.
Right.
These-
Yeah,
it's-
it's-
yeah.
Well, help parents, if they all have their kids all on one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, the optimal thing.
Right. Well, we can't do anything about the village.
have there
So,
been
I'm
any
sorry.
properties of that size that have come up? Like,
We looked at one
That you could
property
buy?
on, across
Yeah, across the way. from there.
from the, town barns down that road, right?
Cold Grove?
Uh,
No.
Old Grove.
Yeah.
It was like-
Oh, I remember that was on the
Big,
market, yeah.
Big chunk of land.
Big
Um,
space.
Out there in the back and beyond, we
Yeah.
really like the visibility of 96. and
Yeah.
the
Bus
bus
route.
access.
Right.
And it would need some terraforming. I think.
Yeah.
One of the challenges is getting all of the community groups and, youth organizations on board. And so because they've been used to using the school for so long,
Right.
even though they have to compete with every other team on the planet to get into those spaces and they're playing in all the little nooks and crannies. Even though they have that hurdle, they know that parents love to drop their kids off
Right.
in one location.
And it's, yeah.
And so going remotely, even 5 miles out of town.
No,
is
I
like,
get it, yeah.
So we're trying to get everybody on board, but step one, let's get it zoned, so at least we know we can move forward and
Also, if you have multiple kids in different
sports.
sports.
Yeah.
then it's much easier.
Exactly, so.
But we're one of the few towns, and we're certainly the richest town in Tompkins County that doesn't have public fields.
Yeah, yeah.
That are not owned by the school district. Go to Lansing, you go to Ithaca,
Field just put in.
Newfield, yep.
How big is how big is like the facility of someplace like Newfield? I'm just
I don't know the
curious.
acreage of new fields, but they bought a farm and they have several soccer fields, a basketball court, I think maybe a tennis court, so it's
Yeah.
decent size.
And
Yeah.
they got donations to fund
The
that?
town bought the property and I don't know how they funded it. I
Uh-huh.
honestly haven't reached out to them, but I didn't see an article about it.
There's
They
nothing up
should
there.
know, right?
They got a
Right.
theater. In school, they're expensive and ornate.
How does they do that?
I don't know.
Let's see.
Yeah, they are probably in one of those categories of
Talk to Ellinger for.
disadvantage.
I haven't talked to him about how he's funding that. I do know Newfield is making a huge committed in their youth. They're going after serious money and investing right now. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna put you in touch with John. I will, I'm not John, sorry, not Don, Neil, I'm sorry. Gotta mentally turn that off. I'll put you in touch with Niels and he is super familiar with that process right now. So, he can at least help you on that trajectory. I think that's probably the more realistic short-term one. But when we get a comprehensive plan going, I think bringing these voices in, it's so
Definitely.
critical.
It's hugely important.
And we actually have openings available on our comprehensive plan. So if you are not feeling like you have enough to do in the community that's unpaid,
Right.
I'll make sure you get a get the invitation about that. So,
We'll reach out to the owner and see if we can get that ball started. Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, and redo, I guess you've done this analysis of how much difference that would make, plus your other fields, like, is it enough to make it worth your investment? But if it would be, like you said, it's got 96 visibility, it's got water, it's got a lot of things that,
We could do the skate park and hardcore surface could also
Right.
be put on that campus. It could be gradual, doesn't have to all happen at once.
Right.
Right.
yeah,
The bus access is really important. I mean, obviously, the
I
close.
think
closer to the
water's
school,
probably
yeah.
pretty important considering like that you need to water field, like if you're trying to get the grass to
Yeah.
be a certain way and everything, that is an issue. That's a lot of water if you don't have municipal water source.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for
Great
coming.
thank you
suggestions.
very much for making time.
Really
Yeah.
excited about moving forward. Cool,
Thank you.
I'm gonna email you right now, Todd.
Okay. great. Thanks, everyone.
I-
Okay.
Here, let me get the other side of this.
My exercise.
That's it.
Does anyone need?
Okay.
Is this from the new health plan provider? Is that who provider?
Prayer Joe's.
Number 4.
We are. Let's find where we have gone to. So. Okay. We're on re-foring. Re-for, it's a repeat of 4 because it should be 5 under old
Oh,
business.
yeah.
So Rich,
No, sorry, I completely blew it.
no, it's okay. Did you?
Forgot?
So we finished all the other budgets, but I didn't want to exclude you since it is on the agenda and I wouldn't want to exclude you anyway. Was there anything in particular you wanted to talk about on the B fund? the DA, the DB, water districts 1, 2, 4, and water district 3. Those are all the funds that we covered.
We didn't make any big changes.
We made no, yeah,
Yeah. There were, we crossed out a couple things.
typos.
We
and-
put in
Yes.
officially
Some
what we originally-
explanatory
Yeah.
stuff. Didn't change the tax levy.
And so that is officially put in now that, we did that, but none of it changed the tax levy.
The only issue is on that water district. The
Which water district?
one that, the water, but the one that is problematic.
Four,
Oh,
One.
one.
One. We are not doing anything on it yet. We are going to start looking into that in 2023, but it doesn't have any real impact on the 2023 budget because Water District 1's not an official water district. So, under New York State water law, so, call it a water district, but so we're gonna start that investigation process. It'll be paid for out of the B fund.
Mostly engineering, wouldn't it, for like a study?
Yes, so the first part is gonna be legal, which is, it's going to, we'll never be able to claw back the very initial part. Simply because we can start clawing back money and attributing it to a water district if a water district's formed once, once the town board takes resolution, an action by resolution to begin the process. So, but it's gonna be mostly engineering,
Right. I was thinking.
and that'll all be
call
eventually,
MRB and go, okay,
exactly.
what do we do? Sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's helpful that because they're also the village's engineering firm, that hopefully that it's not gonna be as hard to track down the records, but it's finding the records. It's digging into the contract that we have. And we're gonna have to investigate whether or not the town wants to create a water district, if the property owners are interested in creating a water district. So it's going to be year 2023 is the year of water, because I'm dealing with now, because if we move forward with the development district for in it to Gannick, there's the biggest water hurdle going to be there. That's what I'm discovering. So, but it would become partially out of the B fund. We're gonna try and keep as much in-house as possible, so we're not triggering legal review unnecessarily, but we do need to delve into those contracts and see who's responsible for what and. But mostly,
There hasn't been any more discussion on the end.
it's coming to, that's why I was familiar with it, is that they are most likely to be on our agenda for November 8th. Of putting in an official request. And the board looking at deciding whether or not to proceed and go to a scoping plan with planning board. That would be the next part. The ultimate challenge is going to be water, though. We can put a development district in place. Water is going to be the challenge because of the lines running through the state park. And it took the village multiple years to negotiate with the state on their,
Do they need more water?
they've maxed out they cannot do any development under either current zoning or a development district without
The,
the incant, without increased capacity. That's what I have been informed from the village, that they are at full capacity of what they can use. So a water district would have to be, and the village has, informally indicated to me that any additional capacity is most likely going to trigger needing a water district.
one out of it.
Well, but a water district that the village is still providing the water.
Yeah, the village would sell the water, but they're going to sell it to the town who's then passing the water. It's going to be it's going to be complicated.
But the pipes are all there. It's just. they
No,
want a diff-
the
more
service line
piping
is,
has
the
to be
service
built.
line is not sufficient
Okay,
for
so
more development.
that's my question.
Yeah,
Well,
so-
I mean, I think so this development district process, the board would potentially say, okay. Before we knew some of these.
yeah, because you can create the development district. You can create a development district, and I talked to legal counsel about it, and he's the example of you've got 100 acres of undeveloped farmland that's been that you want to, thinking of the parcel that Grassroots owns, for instance. And if that was in the AR zone, and they come to us and they're like, we're right by the village, we want to do fill in the blank. And we say, they don't have to demonstrate that they can fund the project right now. in order to get a development district, because it's the same thing. You want to have you need to have your zoning in place so you can have your funding backers. So we could put a development district in place, but all of the actual approval of site plan is going to be contingent upon having the services necessary to support it.
But they also wanted like a 3-story building and stuff too, right? We would
Yeah.
just say, okay, without not knowing the design of the building and all. I mean, is that the process that we're talking about?
So so for instance, I can tell you the example of,
I think there'll be some public input on that.
so it goes to the scoping plan, and the scoping plan kind of lays out the parameters. For instance, Development District 1, Spruce Row, is allowed to have upwards of 400 and sub-on sites. They've never developed all of their sites. They came back to the planning board last year for 60 additional sites. Those have not actually been installed yet because even though they went through site plan approval with the planning board, it's again contingent upon water and septic. And they're caught up in a conflict between DEC and the health department. So no developments actually, the site plan approval was contingent upon them having those systems in place and those approvals in place. So the scoping plan is supposed to lay out the parameters of how big a square footprint, all of those things, how much hardscape or what percentage can be developed. That should all be in those documents.
That's what the board would have.
That's
before
what
they
the board would
decide.
have it. Yeah.
And then it still has to go through the BZA if they need a variance. right?
If they need a variance, it goes through the BZA.
Right.
I think their intention is to avoid the BZA by creating a development district that meets their needs. That was my understanding from their presentation.
Yeah.
So, but again, that's,
But depending on the setback for this building they want to build, we might still have to. I mean, if they defy the setbacks, they have to go get a variance.
right, but I
Or-
think they have a plan. If I understand correctly, I could be misunderstanding. I think they have a plan for how they want to develop the property, and they want to design the development district language to match the plan they already have.
Right,
So then they could avoid the,
because the development district
Variances.
has its own, doesn't have the same setback requirement.
no, we get to
We get to,
we could say you can cover it 100%. Right? As long as we're not in violation of state law, the town would have the purview to,
if they want to put a hotel 5 feet before it grows.
and we say, okay.
They can, in the development,
I mean, as long as we're not getting into right of ways and things like that, yeah.
but he owns it, yeah,
Well, he doesn't own the road,
No.
so there's still public right of ways. But to your effect, I mean, yes. That's what development districts are for, is to be able to be really crafty about. Spelling out specifically. I mean, it's not gonna be a small process. It's not. But they want, if they can, they want to, if possible, be at the planning board in December. They can get their documentation in a row. So if not in January.
they go to the planning board before we decide on the development district.
So, yeah, we send basically the planning board kind of is our subcommittee or our committee that works on helping craft that language, but ultimately they don't get to decide. What?
What if they don't want to?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that we passed a resolution asking them to do it. I mean,
Very complicated.
it is very complicated. I mean, the challenge might be if the planning board wants it scoped, wants to design it in a specific way that's in contradiction to how the property owner wants. I mean, ultimately, nothing gets changed in the zoning without the town board voting in favor of it.
The planning board should have their own opinion.
And I'm sure there are gonna be lots of people that have their opinions about it. So,
Well, how could it possibly go through by December? I mean,
oh, no, it would just go to the planning board
Oh.
for the first.
Okay.
So
Swing.
how detailed does the development district need to be that is approved by the town board?
It gets into, I mean, when it was Development District 1, I mean, we can look at it. There's some development districts are pages and pages and pages. Really getting into the nitty gritty. The same, but then I'm sure there are other development districts in New York State that are broad brush.
And we run into issues with development districts over the
Right,
years.
yeah, there's a
No
thing to
problem.
be considered carefully, for sure.
And with Moore's Marina, it was a huge mess. Because they way overbuilt, went over what the development district kind of allowed. Then they had to come back and redo it and
I was there for that, yeah. So, yeah, it's not a simple action by any means. So,
Is that on Neil's agenda to review our, because we have several that are development districts that are no longer being used.
he has so much on his plate right now that no, that's not been high on the list.
No, I don't mean
Yeah.
high on the list, but
Yeah.
even if it's on the bottom.
Well, I mean, the fact that Bar Angus went on the market this past week has put it on my radar screen, because that's the next one that I could see triggering. There's,
They were, developed,
they are a development district, but there's some questions that we have to explore from a legal standpoint over case law in terms of how long something persists and rights to different uses. It might not be so simple as, or it might be, depending on New York State. You know, how quickly does that development district disappear? So if it goes out of use, because right now what's holding that district in place is that there's an active residential unit on there.
Right, but it gave that person lifetime use of it, and that person, I don't think is with us anymore. It was like a mother or grandmother or somebody that was,
It was checked within the last 6 months and there was somebody living there.
I don't know.
So-
it's been- It ought to be.
There are
controlled.
two.
The one behind it. is-
Yeah. So, but either here nor there, you know, when it changes ownership, you know, questions over of when that officially ceases to exist, or does it revert, or something that is on my radar screen. So I have not thrusted on him. We're dealing with the town board's hit list right now
Mhm.
on 96 and Brook Road.
Mhm.
So that will make you happy.
Okay. Tentative budget discussion.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that the tentative budget
That,
discussion?
did you have anything else on, because that was his question about the water district.
The water.
I'm gonna be spending some of your legal money. And
All right, so where are we?
so if you don't have anything else, we can actually pull up the resolution related to the tentative budget that Michelle passed around my end.
And I want I have a friendly amendment to that, which I can put it off again, but. And then Roxanne pointed out in, the third, it's the text in red. 3.2 says increase of 32,000 to B599. Adding appropriated fund balance right after that, just for clarification purposes. And also to match how we worded it above.
Right, because you can't read the whole number on the printout sheets. I don't know if you can on the one.
Oh, really?
online. Yeah,
I think I might have. Oh, I know.
anyway, in case someone's looking, I
Right.
mean, we know what it is, but I think putting.
Yeah.
Appropriated fund balance in parentheses makes it clear.
That's where it's coming from,
Yeah,
the 32,000
yeah.
from
that was what
appropriated fund.
We agreed to.
Yeah, okay.
Last meeting.
Well, Michelle, I'd like to give kudos, many, many reasons, but one is that the town board, to the best of our knowledge, has never actually done this, which that we are supposed to do, which is actually specifically lay out the changes we've made to the tentative budget before it goes to the preliminary budget phase. So
New this year.
new this year.
Feature.
And this will also schedule the public hearing on the preliminary budget for a regular meeting on November 8th at 7 PM.
Mr. Person, resolution, there's a chance that the tax decrease, even though the increase in the tax levy is different from the town and the village to 5.85, is the same as the village tax rate decrease? Is that like just a piece of chance?
Piece of chance.
A
Let me
piece
just
of
check
chance.
that.
I see, I was misunderstanding what you were saying, I'm sorry. It's like a
Oh,
piece,
it's actually 4.85
For
for
which
the
one?
village.
For the village.
Town outside of it?
okay, so which is 4.85?
Village of Trumansburg residents.
Hang on a second.
Were you partying in advance of this?
Do we
Joking.
need to put?
I
that
didn't think so,
detail
was
in
teasing.
In order to pass this?
No, it's,
Well, it's in the preliminary budget that we're passing anyway to go on to. public hearing, so we might.
Michelle, do you
need
want a minute and we
resolution.
can come back to this? If you want to step
The
away,
last- No. that's
Okay.
fine. The last one, thank you, Rich. The last 5.85 should be 4.85.
thank you. Good catch, Rich. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
And just to clarify, what were you saying about the 32,000?
I'll resend it to you. I'll just resend it.
Yeah, so it just,
Does anybody else?
You're just putting in parentheses appropriated fund balance after the 599.
Yeah, not even in parentheses, but. So then, if you look at 1.6. This is copying.
right, thank you.
Well, it's not really. A tax rate decrease for the village.
Well, yeah, we don't know.
It's for the town and village, or whatever,
Yeah, so.
town including village.
Right.
Yeah, we
Well,
only have,
I guess it is village.
Well, because the town, the overall one for the town includes all of the other funds.
right, so maybe it should be worded. The town outside the village as opposed to just,
Because it includes the eight fund. Yeah.
well. It's just that the other ones, the water and it's just that the fire and the EMS
In green.
and the B funds are in the town. But there's no
The
B
con-
fund tax.
the
you don't
confusion
fund
for
taxes
me
for the
is-
B fund.
It reads 4.1 levy and 4.85 tax rate decrease for the village of the residents. But they get their own, this doesn't include their taxation from the village.
Right.
Right.
So it's a little confusing.
Yeah, and this is historic language, and I'm.
Come up with a
We
little-
can take it out.
What'd you say? We can take it out. I mean, it's information that's already in the budget.
That's what I was just saying.
Reiterating.
Right.
You can also just look at the budget and.
Yeah,
Right,
without
I
all the
Suggesting that we
percentages.
just
Right.
take
Just
that
take
out
it out.
and at,
At Ulysses, no board.
Yeah,
board,
and then,
period. That's, I think that's the
Yeah.
clean.
yeah, that's,
Then we don't have to play around with it right now and you can read it here. And I presume you have some little narrative that's gonna
Keep it
go
simple.
with the preliminary budget
Minister.
to the public.
Caitlin will be.
Right, so there'll be a little narrative that goes with it anyway, so
Yeah.
people
We
will
don't think of it, right?
even get that clear.
They got this. They don't take out for how-
All right, so we're striking
Longer than
everything
it had a
after,
That's right. Shelf life.
as presented at the 10:25 regular meeting of the Ulysses Town Board.
Period,
We're
period.
striking the
Take
rest
that
of
to
that.
Okay, you did, Michelle?
Works for me, yeah, because there was, I mean, those other numbers, the 3.07.
You're already-
Tax levy, those aren't actually even, that's an outside calculation, that isn't currently represented up here, so it's like a little bit of a mismatch. So this is totally fine.
Yeah, you
yeah,
have
why
to get the
raise
wording,
questions?
you'd have to get the wording just right so people are clear.
Yeah.
Excellent. So we had a motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Well done, Michelle. Thank you
you.
very,
Thank you.
very much for all your work.
Thank you.
And thank you to the town board for all of your work. There were lots of good eagle eyes and catches and conversations, so. Okay. Let's knock that out. Moving on to the consent agenda, I'm assuming, Roxanne, you wanted to pull, we didn't want to do the gatekeeper resolution as a,
I just wanted to make a very slight friendly amendment.
so then we need to, yeah, that's fine, but then we'll need to pull it out.
Okay,
You to the beekeeper one or the bee one or just the gatekeeper one?
just the gatekeeper one.
Okay, so then for the consent agenda, then we're dealing with the Bee City resolution and the relevying of Water District 3 delinquent water bills. Did anybody want to discuss those and pull those out? Or are you comfortable moving them?
I'm comfortable.
Then, I'll accept a motion to approve, those two, resolutions. in the
So
package.
Yeah, which two?
Bee City and the relevying of Water District 3.
Shall we do-
Oh, sure.
Does that make Mary the queen bee?
Sorry.
I will be the.
Yeah.
Is it seconded around?
Yes, it's, I think it's lots of seconds. All those in favor? Aye. Happy bee, bee time.
So just so, because Michelle wanted to leave, I just, for this BRIC grant, the gatekeeper resolution that you are working on, I was just suggesting adding to the last, whereas the grant, I want to make sure this is right, Michelle. Whereas the grant requires a maximum 25% local match. I think it said in the email it would come from the A fund.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to add that in. Add
It's the
in
only place it
wording
could come from.
that says such funds are available in the A townwide fund,
I have a question.
so that people
Yeah.
know
Yeah,
where
is
it's
it-
coming
I
from.
don't understand how
Okay,
a generator could be $50,000 for this building.
It's, well, it's not just the generator, it's the design, it's the installation, all of that. Hopefully it's not $50,000, but we're working with some really rough numbers. And
So what, but
You
what,
could buy a
why do
generator.
we need a generator for this building?
Right.
Yeah,
Why?
keeps the well, do you want to go ahead? I mean, it's been
It's
recommended.
continuity Is really what it is.
yeah, but
You could use.
electricity goes out, it comes back in 5 minutes, it's.
It's like an
For
emergency.
extended
Town barn
emergencies,
is a-
this could
like,
potentially
we could
serve
have
as a
Yeah, like
relevant,
any,
um, in extended emergencies, this building could potentially serve as a shelter.
Or a communication center.
Yeah.
But I
well,
mean,
no, that would be the town barn would be like an EOC. There's nothing here. You can-
What's the
The
EOC?
Emergency Operations Center.
Why?
Well, because
I
the
mean-
town barns where you're gonna be running things out of, they're gonna need to.
Right, but you might also have people coming in who want to talk. I mean, I think it makes sense to have a generator.
I don't
in
mind
this
it, I
building.
just think it's.
A lot of.
I don't,
a Nice big generator. for $12,000. That could run this.
Yeah, hopefully that is what ends up
Right.
happening, but, with the solar panels, there's design that's needed.
What about those battery systems we were looking at during those?
Right. There's gonna be another presentation on that, but it's not gonna be till the spring that they're doing it.
So what you're saying is you're applying for a grant of which 25% with the maximum.
yes,
I just think it's a huge number to start with. It's-
Well, we would be getting, we would ensure business continuity between the highway and here for 25,000 or 27.
But that's business not really. I
For
mean,
here,
yeah.
I mean, if
Server backup
we're in an
one.
emergency situation and we still have to provide services, we have electricity and heat. So it's basically for emergency purposes.
it's also fitting into the Tompkins County Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Yeah,
it's-
they do suggest that on municipalities, that this is outlined in their, it's outlined in their plan. And speaking of which, the only reason we are eligible for these funds is because we participated in them. But yeah, that's explicitly stated in the county plan. Is that is a major risk that the extended power outages, which not like we would turn on the generator for what happened this summer, but it was a couple hours that we didn't have power, so, there's big unknown,
Generator, what am I looking for?
right?
Yeah.
So-
Well, and the other factor too is that we're dealing with a lot of unknowns about the cost to have things done. And I mean, we initially, a few years ago, now, Scott was hunting and pecking around and it was looking like it was gonna be $20,000 to do. Prices have gone up, providers are fewer. So it's a situation where we figured it was safer to apply for more money and then not use it.
Right.
And then only have to match whatever we use. There's no desire to spend more money, but we didn't want to get in a situation where we asked for 75,000, it came out at $85,000 and we're eating more than 25% of that.
Yeah.
So that's,
Right, so we're only matching what we actually
Yeah.
spent.
yes, we're not committing the town to 27.5. That would be the maximum that we would do per the grant. So, and it's probably going to be more expensive for the town barn and we're hoping that for town hall, it's considerably less, but we didn't have the grant cycle came up. We didn't have enough time and it didn't seem appropriate to go to formal
Right.
bids to get numbers. It's also a bad year to try and get those formal bids. So that's kind of what we're working with. It's a very
We'll
rough
get a chance
numbers.
to relook at this.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, if we get the money and And we can always decide that it's not appropriate for one of the facilities. I mean, that's not ideal, but that could be what we determine. So with that amendment, is there someone willing to move this resolution?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any further discussion?
So that was the amendment to add,
After the
Fund.
after the semicolon, such funds are available in the A townwide fund. Just so that the public knows where you're taking the funds out of.
And the resolution is correct. We're only going after the BRIC funding. We're not going after the flood mitigation assistance as the agenda says. So we were looking at both going into last week and then narrowed it down. So all those in favor? Aye. Okey dokey.
Thanks, Michelle.
We have canceled the meeting officially now for the 26th because well done, board. We no longer need a special meeting tomorrow night. We have our regular meeting on November 8th. Town Hall will be closed for Veterans Day on November 11th, which is a Friday. We've done budget modifications. Oh, I'm sorry, Roxanne, I jumped past your item. I
Well,
apologize.
that's okay. I just, it was sent to me by a member of the CSAC, and so I thought I would throw it out there and the board can decide if you want to do it or not. I'm being respectful to the committee, people doing work and thinking about things and bringing them up and
Thank you.
give one to Chris. I think I emailed it too, so I did email it. Anyway, as people may know, there's on the ballot in November is the Environmental Bond Act.
Bond Act's gonna be in.
And I'm trying to find the paper that I had about it. I can't find that now. Hold on for a second.
You looking for this?
Yeah.
Is this what you want?
Oh, yeah, here, or whatever, you can look at it if you want. So. Right, and so the proposal is to create state debt of not to exceed 4.2 billion in bonds to do a variety of things. Flood risk reduction. So it's a lot of capital funding, capital projects for restoration and flood risk reduction, climate change mitigation, water quality improvement, and resilient infrastructure. There's a lot for dealing with lead pipes and problems like that in the state. And then open space, land conservation and recreation, and agriculture, soil, farmland protection. And so, I mean, there's two sides of it. The Bond Act is authorizing the state to take on more debt, and an argument can be made that a lot of these problems, if not solved or kept from happening, are going to cause a lot more cost to the state than fixing them does. I think that's becoming more and more obvious with all of the climate related disaster problems that we have. But so there's two ways to think about it. But anyway, that's the NICE Act, the New York State Association of Conservation Advisory Councils, put this out at at the meeting that they had. There was a lot of discussion on it. I actually was at that meeting remotely, but I forgot about the resolution to bring to town boards. Encouraging boards to think about supporting it. And it certainly has a lot of things that our town says we support and want to do as part of.
And it
our-
may provide funds to do
Right.
some of those things.
Right, and so you are taking on state debt, but hopefully you're actually gaining jobs, you're gaining environmental protection that doesn't cost the state more. So, I mean, that's, I support it for those reasons, but I'm just bringing it up for everybody.
There is not supporting the defense for very disadvantaged communities,
Right,
which I'm fine with, it's just not.
there's a lot
Well,
of
so
hazardous conditions. It's a statewide.
60 to 65. then
Right, that's right,
I can
Half
do that.
full, half empty, and
right.
But
But
I-
second,
Excellent. Any further discussion?
So in paragraph 7. The mathematical thing, is that two different ones? Because if it is it 4,200,000,000?
yeah,
yeah,
So
Yeah,
they should strike the and
strike
instead
the
of comma.
and, yeah.
right. Good point.
I'm assuming that the second, the mover and seconder are fine with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion? I don't want to be prime minister
No,
because they
okay.
try and hit you with things.
You
They
think?
roll,
We get
they,
to throw
they,
garlic at
they,
you or
yeah,
something?
they roll things up and, okay, all those in favor? Aye. They do a lot of yelling too.
Yeah, they do.
Excellent. Well, thank you for bringing that and thank you to your committee for bringing it up, your board, one of your members. That moves us on to payment of audited claims. We have one item before us. And it is a payment to Suit Coat Corporation, and this is so we can get our reimbursement for we have to do it, basically, we're doing it mid-month. So that we can get our reimbursement for road paving this year. If we didn't pass it now, we would not get it till March next year, so we should get it before the year closes. So that is for voucher 476, the total of $48,507.89. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second,
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. We enjoy getting our money back. And that brings us to,
So I had.
yes, we already did
did
that.
that.
We did it first.
I had a thing
Yeah.
I just wanted to
public safety.
raise.
Sure.
A thought coming out of this meeting, which is that with regard to this quandary about the, Trumansburg Recreation and needing the money to, get money from a financer or or from donations to buy a property and not knowing if it would be doable or not. Is there, can we think about it all? I don't know, it might be something to think about with the attorney, the town, either loaning money to purchase property somehow, or purchasing the property in some kind of consortium or something like that, or helping with that. Maybe loaning the money, I don't know, because, we have potentially enough money to do that. And then that gets them out of that loop, or we own it and they pay it back
Well,
as
we brought
rent
this
or
up at the
something.
last meeting. Why they didn't ask us for money this time with all the other funding?
No, but that's different. I'm talking
No.
about being able to, they're
We
not gonna
have-
ask us for $100,000.
We have money set aside.
It's not enough to buy the property.
Right,
Right.
but I'm saying this year, we normally put money aside, and we didn't.
But it's only a small amount.
Yeah, we know we moved 2,500, yeah.
Right.
Did we?
Yeah, 2,500.
But I'm,
We did the same as last year.
I'm talking about a larger amount of money to buy
Finished
a
the
piece
budget.
of property.
Right. Well, that does.
No,
bring up
I'm
the-
not saying we should put in the budget. I'm saying, is this something that can be considered?
I have had
We
this
have another
conversation
hundred
with,
thousand in ARPA. I mean, it seems like it gets out of that chicken and egg thing if the board thinks that this is a really important thing for the town and youth, and it benefits the whole town, and I think it does. And so it's one of the kind of things I wanted us to try to look at, if creatively doing, and so as opposed to open up a can of worms. Well, I know we can buy property. I mean, working with them, thinking about this as a particular action to consider, because, as opposed to opening up, changing the zoning on 85% of the land use in the town right now to accommodate this
Still
need,
have to
which is
change the
important.
zoning
Yes,
if we own.
yes, we do, but it takes a long time and they want to be able to act more quickly. And so perhaps it's a way for the board to help make this happen if we think that this is important, and to act more quickly and to be more thoughtful on the rest of it. Yeah, we can make a development district. We don't need to change the whole zoning so that they can find a piece of property anywhere.
so
It's
I,
just gonna take a long time and need a lot of public input.
so I have talked to him about that as a potential. The issue for them is not purchasing the property. The issue, the money wise, it's not purchasing the property. It's gonna be developing the property. So the acquisition is kind of, they just don't want to put the money towards it. And because they have, from what I've understand, they've got money, even though they don't have it in their bank account, there are people who would donate to purchasing the property. The real challenge is $1 million to redevelop it. So, and that would be the challenge if the town board purchase it. I would love to drop money to buy.
But if
to-
we had the property, then they could raise the money
For
To-
the develop.
to develop the property, and they would know that they could do a development district. Working with us, it's the town's property. And it just seems to me like it's worth some further investigation. They sounded like they were concerned about raising the money to buy it if they didn't know they could do something with it.
Well, they're not gonna buy it unless we can give them assurances on the development, on the zoning.
But they were worried about that chicken egg timeline of being able to get the money once they found a property. But if they found a very suitable property and the town could potentially consider being a partner in it and acting, they'd be able to act more quickly to purchase the money, the property, then in a partnership that benefits the whole town, all the youth and
I think
everything.
the plates can be for the student Barton.
So, and again, I've had many conversations with TCR and the long-term issues that they have talked about. In addition, if we can get zoning squared away, is the ongoing maintenance. And that's where I've talked to them about the ongoing maintenance and care of the property, because that's actually for them going to be a significant hurdle. Is a lot, and that's someplace I think the town would have capacity to help step in over the long term too, because there are, I've been presented by this because I serve on the Taganic Soccer Board, and so we were presented with it. And it's looking at the long-term costs of on a yearly basis, dropping $30,000, $40,000 in maintenance. Gotta mow the lawn, and it's not just mowing the lawn, it's all of that stuff. And so I think that's, I mean, I would love to go buy town, don't get me wrong, I'm never gonna turn down buying land. But it seems like they're looking at long-term maintenance as being a significant hurdle as well as development. And if, it doesn't preclude them from having a partnership with us by any stretch. I did not get the impression in my many conversations with them, because I've been meeting with them as part of the 4 boards. I've been meeting with them separately. I've been meeting with them in conjunction with Taganic Soccer. That it's the ongoing staffing, honestly, because they're a volunteer organization. And so the cost of keeping up maintenance is going to be a challenge too, once they get the development. So.
Well, I'm just reacting to what we heard tonight and this whole chicken and egg of needing to completely change the zoning so that they can be ready to buy a property, and that is a lot of input required, I think, from the town. But then they said that they wanted to know, they couldn't buy, why I thought this was something to think about to help move that forward and a targeted development district where they wanted this loop of, well, they don't know that they'll have the money, and so then and the property owner has to agree to it and all these other things in order for a development district to happen. It's a big circular thing, whereas if this is really important, another option potentially could be for the town to loan the money so it can be purchased quickly, purchase it and have them pay to them. Well, this is what I'm suggesting, Rich, and it's being shot down.
I wasn't shooting it down. I'm giving you more context
I
for
know.
for what the conversation was.
Right, I agree with all of your context, and it's
What I'm
obviously
saying is
not
not
something
the-
to decide on tonight.
If we bought that land and kept it, then we can do what we want.
We
with it.
could do what we want with it. We can control what goes there if you're concerned about it.
Well,
We could sell it to somebody else later.
We also have that little piece of land in Jacksonville we should probably sell.
That's, we're waiting to sell that as part of the comprehensive plan update, because there's been,
Probably a pretty good investment, actually,
Yeah.
Right.
better than 3%.
I mean, I'm just saying, maybe it's worth thinking about, like, in this bigger picture for maybe another conversation, or you guys
We'd have to
know a lot
bring-
about finance.
We'd have to
think
bring
about it.
it back in and talk about. it.
Yeah.
We don't want to get stuck with it. We
well,
still-
that has been the challenge with that property. Under its current zoning, it's clearly not desirable. So, I mean, if it had been desirable, everything was flying off the shelves here. So it would have flown off the shelves had it
Why
been.
should-
Well, I
But
heard
if-
that
the town owned it, we could control who we sold it to,
Well,
and what they want to do.
It's zoned ag, but there's
some
there's something in
restrictions.
the restriction.
You can't grow
in the-
produce.
Can't do produce
Oh,
and
because of
flowers.
gravity restriction.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
So how are you gonna sell an ag property where you can't sell produce? You can't grow produce there.
They're trying to sell it for residential, for a farm, but it's not a good location. Nobody's.
Right,
studying.
but it's a really visible location for some kind of a
Yeah,
It's
facility like this or something else.
No, I don't disagree. I
But-
have been to, yeah.
But
I've
it's
been-
sort of the entry into the town, and so you kind of want to think about what is there and what's the best use of it, you know, and so.
Town is- No,
Well, you're starting to drive, no, it's
Yeah.
not, but we want to fix it, right?
I-
We're trying to make it better. And so I just think it's worth considering. I don't know, it's worth considering. We would have control over it. We can sell it
think we
to
should.
somebody
Are
else.
towns in the business of doing this?
And well, I mean, towns are in the business of building this public facilities. I mean, I think purchasing it, I mean, I could see. I would be deeply uncomfortable to purchase it and then just find a buyer that we like.
No, yeah,
I mean, I can see us being a bridge loan. A bridge loan I would be comfortable with. If they're, I mean, bridge financing, Finger Lakes Land Trust does that. They would have done it for Barton if we had needed to do it.
but I don't trust that. they're necessarily- I think we'd rather own it. Because who knows, if their finances, because the thing. If we bought it, at least it could under something,
Right.
and we still control the money.
It's just something I'm throwing out there to think about because it seems like something that would benefit the whole community. It's a,
And I still think it's benefits in long term.
I think it would be better for the organization. I mean, when I've seen, and I know what the proposal is, it's for a multi-use field. It was initially proposed, it's just soccer. And Teganic Soccer was not comfortable with basically being the leasing agency connected to it as exclusively, because that's expensive. And that's where it was coming up, that the ongoing maintenance, how much would we need, how much would Teganic Soccer have to contribute to offset costs and things like that? And it was more than that board felt comfortable, which is why I had conversations about them converting it to multi-sport facility, because then you're tapping into the football market, you're tapping into the baseball market, you're tapping into the soccer market. Again, it's not if they could do everything they wanted at Aubel's former property, INHS's current property, that would be the best location, but
Right.
it's not, it's gonna be years before INHS is in a position to
I
negotiate.
kind of have a problem.
Okay,
I mean, CTE is a big deal.
Yeah.
it is.
And for us to promote it, I'm not really keen on it. And there's a lot of evidence of its destructive nature. And I'm a football fan. For kids, I mean.
well, they have changed protocols tremendously since even I was in high school, so.
like flag football or something.
There's a lot of flag football. They've changed completely in terms of how you're allowed to tackle. I mean, I'm not saying it's perfect. My boys don't play, so I can't speak from, I've never played. But I can't speak for that, but.
Just a question I wanted.
I don't think you can put in the development district that you
No.
Can't have
couldn't.
football.
yeah,
Well, at any rate, maybe, it kind of goes to the whole campus thing. Maybe they find the property that can be the whole campus and then they're in this loop of raising the money to buy it and all, and maybe the town could think about like being a bridge loan, doing whatever, helping make this happen on a shorter time frame as a development district and
When you said-
getting rid of this chicken egg loop a little bit.
When you said Newfield developed it, the town of Newfield developed it with its own resources?
so I mean, to my understanding, they're leveraging other resources, they're not paying purely out of the town coffers, but they did purchase an old farm. And they've been using some of their ARPA funding to actually pay for. Newfield was one of the school district, or one of the towns that was not participating with rural youth services at Cornell Cooperative Extension. So they're actually doing a pilot program there. They're going after money through the community recovery funds that we're also going after as well for their youth. I mean, they're putting a lot of money, time and effort in Newfield into youth and recreation. not just recreation for youth, but also there's a connection there. So,
Anyway, it's just a thought, but it seems like it could help make something happen on a shorter time frame, and be good for the whole community, and we have, it's something to think about with the funds.
Well, let me ask you, does Will run into this issue that he doesn't? have
oh my
enough-
gosh, it's a constant struggle. It is a constant struggle. I mean, that's why I very eagerly connected the new facilities manager for the school district with Scott Stewart to help bring in Phil to redo the JV soccer field, which got destroyed in the last capital improvement from the school district. You know, someone screwed up at some point and allowed that field to be destroyed. And they needed, 40 or 400 or some odd ridiculous number of tons of topsoil to rectify the situation. And our highway, DPW in the village were helping make that possible.
So just brainstorm. So if we bought the land, we mowed the fields. And we'll expand those programs. If the Gaelic soccer used them, why do you need the intermediary of this spring?
Well, first off, we're seeing Camp Barton's gonna be where I'm hoping to grow a lot of the summer camp program is where there. Why do we need I think TCR has a strong volunteer connection. They have a lot of people that are familiar in the community. I would be very hesitant to cut them out of being a partner. I don't think we lose anything by having them as a partnership. I don't frankly understand why the town never purchased land and developed its own fields. Other towns do.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, I understand, Roxanne. It's amazing. I did get that message. Thank you. No, but I don't think I would feel ethically uncomfortable with snatching land away from somebody who's already indicated they want to develop it themselves. And they're looking to us to help them do that.
Well, I think if we just talk to them and find out what.
I
What do
thought
you
it
think?
was helping them. I wasn't
Yeah.
trying to be ethically wrong. I'm trying to help them.
Right. And I
Promote
think
what they want, what they
we can
came here for.
speculate till tomorrow morning about,
Right.
But they would want, but-
Yeah, I'm saying it's just something for this board to think about, for maybe us to talk with them about.
sure.
And it's only been, what, a year and a half since we've owned a recreation program anyway?
There may well be issues with it, but it
It's true.
It could help be a solution to change the whole zoning, which I have a lot of concerns, the same ones you said. And I think you said too, Rich, just
We all agree.
for a very short term, solution in one little area. I'd like to find another way to make that solution happen.
I thought we did with the development district
did.
approach. That's
Yeah.
why I already connected
Right.
them with.
Right,
with
as
Neil.
long as they can get the land, which they seemed a little concerned about, so. Maybe they'll all work fine and they can get it, then they don't need any help.
I mean, the idea is if we buy the land. And if we buy the land, then we lease them the land.
Whatever, it's something to discuss. There's lots of different ways you could do it.
It also becomes, I have to be mindful too. We just passed a preliminary budget.
Yeah.
And I have limited staff capacity and Barton's gonna take up a bunch of time. For from my standpoint, and it's not, again, this is all not. It's not because any of these things are bad ideas. I think it's great to purchase land. I think it's great to do investment in these types of activities. But I also like to have a plan laid out about how's it actually gonna be executed. Are we hiring outside consultants to do it? We would have to clearly be involved in the efforts to design, implement. I wouldn't want to do this without hearing from more groups that they actually wanted to actively use it. So it's a big commitment. Because you're not just buying a piece of land for $150,000 or whatever it comes out to. You're also buying $1 million worth of development.
It's just the beginning.
Just the beginning, which is great. I mean, it's awesome. I think that this kind of stuff is wonderful. That's why I was wanting them to come in here, because when I brought up this issue of zoning, in the spring, it was shot down. So that's why I encouraged them to come here so that you guys could hear directly what they're needing. So I have a feeling this will be something that we'll talk about much more, which is wonderful. Sure. It's a great thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Whatever's
support.
appropriate, quarterly or twice a year or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember hearing from them for the past couple of years. I was kind of wondering if they still existed.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I know from what they've shared, COVID really slowed things down also, and they've regrouped with new leadership. And Mary, you were in TCR, weren't you,
Yeah,
back
I
in?
was, yeah, I'm there.
Not that long ago either, right? Couple years
Well,
ago?
when I came on the town board, I resigned from the
Okay.
TCR, so. But I was there from 2016 when they started.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Begin
Yeah, so like 3 years. now.
to help them organize.
I helped,
That's right. up your alley.
I filed for nonprofit.
That's so important.
It'll
Yeah.
work. So, good.
All right, well, the next step is you hook them up with,
I already did.
we can see.
Right.
All right, what else?
That's it. Oh, privilege of the floor. Is there anyone in the
Oh,
public?
Linda left.
Linda left us. And Liz doesn't have anything to say. Thank you very much. There's no one in the public present, so we will. I will pass it to Rich.
Where from them, I don't know.
I don't know.
What is it?
Association of. Maybe business.
That's just my company name. I can't change it on Zoom for some reason right now.
Oh,
I'm here
Okay.
personally, though.
We can make some stuff up, but we won't.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I will pass it to Rich for his favorite part of every meeting.
all right, move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, board.
Chris.